on to our next panel, Evolving Debt Underwriting Mechanisms of Funding Climate Innovation. This session will explore how lenders are adapting their credit frameworks to better serve the needs of emerging climate enterprises. As innovators look at debt to scale, this conversation unpacks what makes a business debt ready and how underwriting is evolving to meet the moment. Inviting on stage our panelist, Mr. Nilesh Kothari, co-founder and managing partner at Trifecta Capital, Ms. Monu Jain, partner at Avishkar Capital, Ms. Suhasini Singh, Head of Sustainable Food Debt at Responsibility Investments, Mr. Sai Pramod, Business Head of SME Lending and Climate Finance at Black Soil. I'll request Mr. Jasjeet Mangat, Senior Advisor at Trifecta, to kindly moderate this session. Over to you, Jasjeet.
Thank you, Mala, and congratulations to IIC for yet another excellently curated and hosted event to date. So thank you very much, and if we could have a round of applause for IIC, please. With this panel, it seems like we're intersecting a topic whose time has come, which is the role that non-dilutive and interest-bearing financial products have in the expansion of climate plays. Some of the early speakers have touched upon the various ways by which debt financing has exploded really across the climate landscape, and there are reasons for that. We are dealing with business models that are atoms and molecules and the manipulation of them in addition to bits and bytes, and those are business models that typically take a larger amount of capital, a longer amount of time, and have a fair amount of market validation that needs to be done along with them. But in addition to that, once you have successful winning climate models, there's a need for a large amount of capital in order to expand or amplify the successful copy and paste model, which is something that my co-panelists have done here in their various ways and in their various forms over a period of time. What I'd like to do is to turn over to the panelists one by one and ask them to give, in fact, a slightly lengthy introduction than what you might be used to, so that we can get to know them, not just them, their firms, their products, but also what's their sweet spot in climate and the role that debt financing plays in their estimation for us achieving global climate metrics, which is one important reason why all of us are collected here today. And I'll do that in turn. I'll start with my colleague from Responsibility first, and then we'll just work our way down the table.
Sure, no, thanks. Thanks, Jasjeet. A bit of self-promotion here, so good to have the stage. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Thanks, IIC, for hosting the event and for inviting us to speak. I represent Responsibility Investments. We are an impact asset manager, headquartered out of Switzerland, owned by M&G UK. We manage $5 billion globally, invested primarily in private debt, and we have some funds which are focused on private equity. I represent the debt part of the business. Within the broader climate space, we currently have roughly $1.5 billion invested globally, and this is across various technologies. We do renewable energy, there we do utility providers, but also do companies in C&I, both solar and wind, those that produce energy as well as those that do storage. We do electric mobility, so whether it's EV fleet operators, OEMs, battery swapping, charging infrastructure, and we're looking at other options there as well. We have done energy access in the past in various other geographies, not specifically here in India. We do climate smart agriculture and sustainable production, where we believe there's a strong climate adaptation and mitigation thesis. We also do financial institutions that are in turn financing last mile players relevant for the climate value chain. And we come via the wholesale route through FIs, where we believe this implementation is key. And then, of course, we do the entire circular economy spectrum. So waste to energy, water recycling, cold chains, efficient cold chains, logistics. We've done electric forklifts, for example. And there is this whole wide energy efficiency space where we play in. So we're looking at smart green buildings, IoT devices there. There are data centers coming in with huge power requirements where solar and renewable energy will be key. We're evaluating that. So the entire real asset theory and space is one that we are quite bullish on. So it's a wide spectrum for us. I feel today all the sectors that we touch have a climate angle. We started, of course, with the entire mitigation thesis. So today, I think the projects that we've financed so far have lifetime emission savings of roughly 70 million tons CO2, and we measure this at our end. We've started to look at adaptation quite a bit, so we're looking at water efficiency and sustainable practices across large swaths of land, and we're measuring that as well. So for us, building climate resilience is now key, and we are working with companies across the spectrum to do that. We come in as a foreign lender here in India. We today have roughly $700 million invested, so about 6,000 crores plus. And that should grow substantially. We don't have India dedicated funds, but it's a large allocation for us. I've been thinking about, the narrative here today about how do you support early stage companies in this journey. I think given our structure as a foreign lender, we've tried to, and I think the evolution of both the sectors as well as our funds has been similar. So we've been early backers of many companies today who've grown large on the renewable space. So whether it's Fourth Energy Partners, whether it's Ampin, some of these we were early backers as a foreign lender. We continue to work, therefore, with companies through their stage of growth. We come in as lenders either on the senior secured side, senior unsecured. We've looked at mezz capital, so those companies that somehow grow out and take capital from large asset managers, as the previous presentation was about. We stay relevant by providing mezz financing or financing structures which can be attractive at holdco levels as well. And we do the entire spectrum from project finance, CapEx, working capital. I think what we've struggled with to some extent, and I'm sure my colleagues here will speak about that, our sweet spot hasn't been yet with early stage financiers, or early stage companies. We aren't early stage financiers, but we would probably be the second line as you start to look at growth capital. So that's a bit about us. I can come back with other things, but yeah, thank you.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you for laying the groundwork like that. Monu, if I may ask you to go next, and when we spoke, you made a particular point of raising the financing gap for small and medium enterprises focused on climate, that was a missing gap in the market for you. But there's a lot more that you do at Avishkar, and there's a lot more that you've done. If you could share what Avishkar is doing and where your sweet spot in climate is.
Yeah, I'm a partner with Avishkar's credit fund. It's our global supply chain fund. By way of background, I have nearly 30 years in building lending businesses in India for SMEs and mid-markets. So through our fund, as the name suggests, we're a global fund, and we are supporting SMEs in emerging economies like Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. We're domiciled in Luxembourg, so we do face some of the challenges of foreign lenders as well, while the RGP is Indian. We are, if some of you know Avishkar, we are deeply our philosophy is very deeply about impact. So this fund reflects that totally, and we are focused on creating positive outcomes in climate and social, and we track that, we support that. In fact, I like to say we support it passionately and we track it very objectively. So that goes hand in hand. The fund is, our thesis, as Jasjeet was just mentioning, we start with SMEs. It's really, I think now, increasingly known fact that SMEs are the center stage of the economy, the economic growth engines, but they're also very large, they have a large carbon footprint. So they create 40 to 60% of business-related GHGs are attributed to SMEs. And they are very resource intensive, they are huge guzzlers of water, up to 75%, especially in food and agro, is consumed by these SMEs. And there is huge opportunity because less than 40% of these SMEs have any mitigation or adaptation practices in place, and that's simply a factor of lack of capital. So we start with SMEs and we say, how can we provide them growth capital so that they not only generate financial returns, but also create financial positive outcomes on sustainability, on climate and social. And so this is Avishkar's typical returns with resilience mantra, and we totally follow that. We are sector agnostic, but we do have certain themes, and we follow the themes of global supply chains, responsible consumption, and sustainable agriculture. When we go with global supply chains, our belief is that if we support emerging companies which are directly or indirectly related and exporting either products or services to developed economies, we are cleaning the entire supply chain and hence amplifying the impact. It's not just restricted to what we are doing here. It is throughout, and our investors really support that cause. And so within this, we work with all sectors. We have textiles, we have auto, we have, literally every sector that we would work with, sustainable packaging, logistics. Then we work with agriculture, sustainable agriculture, and Avishkar really has deep domain expertise in agriculture. We've been one of the earlier lenders, both in this and the financial inclusion space. We understand this sector well. There's a huge impact to be created. In fact, just from our fund itself, we support 2 million farmers, and this is through our 8 investee companies. 2 million farmers. We create 30,000 plus jobs, which is more than 55% of which are women. And we, on the climate side, our portfolio companies, they recycle 3,000 plus metric ton of waste. They recycle 4 million liters of water. And they use solar energy of, I'm not remembering that statistic. Even if the numbers are small, the point to note is that these are SMEs and they need support to move. The transition is in a positive direction. So that's what we support, and responsible consumption has electric mobility, it has your personal durables, we support those companies. The fund is, we provide flexible, non-dilutive structures, and that's where the SMEs really have a need for our kind of capital, because we are able to align the repayments with their ability to repay. And that's something that traditional capital is unable to do. In any case, they're unable to raise traditional capital because banks and NBFCs need collaterals, they need strong borrowing histories, they need proven technologies or in climate. So the fund also is a blended finance fund. Our anchor investor is a German DFI, and they have given a first loss guarantee for other incoming investors. Also pleased to share, and some of you would have heard earlier in the day, that a significant Japanese institution has also committed a significant amount to our fund, and with which we will do the first close. The fund is targeted at a $220 million, and we hope to support many more SMEs through this. Also pleased to say that with our thesis, we have been able to generate a 12 to 13% USD IRR return on the portfolio, and create outcomes on our companies and create growth for them. And maybe if we have time, I will walk you through some of the examples of how our companies are finding value add in that. So we can deep dive later in the conversations. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Monu, and congratulations on closing the Japanese investor, because this is onward lending for the benefit of the Indian ecosystem. Sai, if you could do similar honors for Caspian and also help us understand the relationship between Black Soil and Caspian too.
Sure, thanks. And just a side note, I think post-lunch sessions are good also, because we have a house full people keenly listening to us, settled post the lunch. So hope everybody are doing well. At Caspian, we are a impact focused debt provider. We have a heritage of close to about 20 years, where we started as an equity fund manager, and we started the debt business close to about 12 years back. Our focus is to provide debt capital to early stage. I think that's a distinction that we've made, where the kind of companies that we wanted to support. But we are focused on sectors like food and ag, clean technology, healthcare, education, water and sanitation. Women-focused enterprises is a key focus area for us, along with the financial inclusion segment, which is microfinance as well as other NBFCs, which are onward lending to MFIs, MSMEs as such. So over the past 12 years as a Caspian standalone entity, we've supported close to about 240 early stage enterprises, cumulatively disbursed about 4,500 crores, and all this while maintaining our credit quality in check by less than 1% of gross NPA. So, but of course, impact as well as early stage is a very high risk combination as such, right? It's not, these are not run of the mill businesses. They have a business model which is disruptive or asset light in nature, or run by typically first generation entrepreneurs. So we have a thesis about impact being at a core of what they want to achieve, along with of course making a perfect business model sense as well. That is what our journey has been towards. And climate is at a, like Suhasini mentioned, it is a cross-cutting theme across different sectors. We've supported companies in sustainable agri like organic or DRE solutions like off-grid solar, off-grid milk chillers. We've supported small solar EPC companies which does less than 20 to 50 megawatt sort of projects as well. We've supported waste to energy companies. I think in the previous keynote there was mention of GPS Renewables, one of our very early debt investment post which they raised significant equity as well. So waste to energy is one thing, circularity. So it's a theme which we see it present across different segments as such. And to speak about where Black Soil, so we are merging with Black Soil Capital, which is a Mumbai focused NBFC, and impact is at the core of what, as in it's a, it is something that they already do as part of their business model in itself. So as a combined entity, we would have supported close to about 500 companies, cumulatively disbursed close to about 12 to 13,000 crores, and with an AUM of about 2,500 crores as we speak. So that's the thing, but I can get into the details of how we go about in terms of underwriting climate focused enterprises.
No, absolutely. Wonderful rundown there. Nilesh, venture debt in India.
Thanks, Yashit. Thanks IIC for having me here, and very excited to be part of this extremely qualified and talented panel. Trifecta Capital was established about decade ago. And we are not your conventional impact investor. When we started Trifecta Capital 10 years ago, it was, how do we solve the problems of food and logistics and mobility and climate and, transportation and healthcare and education in India, leveraging technology. And, having invested almost $1 billion over the last 10 years, we realized that we are actually one of the largest impact investors in this country, with almost 5,000 crores invested across different sectors. And, last year we decided that, there is significant opportunity. We have to, like everybody else, be a very responsible investor. And so we now have a formal ESMS policy. We have an ENS manager. We are, becoming more of a conventional impact investor. But the interesting thing is, we realized that by leveraging technology, we could solve the problems that the country faces much faster. And so we started by supporting startups in different forms, debt, equity. We also have an advisory services business, which helps startups. And we ended up investing in nearly 230 of them. Over half of them are category leaders. So a lot of companies that you may hear about, whether it's Euler or Nephroplus or Urban Company or Misho, Zepto, these are all Trifecta portfolio companies. And we've seen them grow from very early days, and with all the support that we've been able to provide through our capital, through our networks, through our experience and knowledge, we've seen them grow into very, very large companies. In fact, from our portfolio, 6 companies have already listed, another 30 will list in the next 2 years. So, and we are anticipating, Shadowfax, Misho, Turtlemint. I mean, some of these great companies who are large and who are all category leaders and who all built these massive businesses to solve all these mega problems by leveraging technology. So we're very excited about the way we've been able to support the impact story of India. We've been able to solve all the big problems. There's a lot more to be done. We've been able to create additionality. Founder dilution is a big issue. And so we've been able to provide debt capital to these young companies, Series A, B, C, D, E. And we've been able to prove that done responsibly, a good company is not necessarily one, or a credit-worthy company is not necessarily one that needs a lot of land, building, plant, and machinery, and very stable cash flows for your credit to be secure. You'll be surprised to know that of the nearly 8,000 crores of debt that we provided to these companies, our gross write-off is 1.4% in 10 years. And this is, after all the shocks of demonetization, GST, credit crisis, COVID, funding winter in our ecosystem, our net write-off is actually 0. So, fundamentally, if you're investing behind a good business, you're investing behind a good management team, you're investing behind a big opportunity, I think it is possible to make good investments. And that's precisely what we've been able to do. We manage 5 funds, and we're very honored to have IFC in our latest fund. They realized that venture debt is a massive opportunity, and in India especially. And they decided to start by partnering with us, initially as being an LP in our fund, uh, but more importantly, looking at other ways where that capital can be, uh, infused into our ecosystem uh, through, other forms and other channels and so on and so forth. So, and just a few other things. Trifecta Capital, we have 3 offices. We touch about 2,000 companies on a regular basis, always looking for opportunities to invest across the spectrum. Anything that the government doesn't like, we stay away from. Everything else, we are happy to support. Thank you.
That's terrific. And hopefully those lengthy introductions also help set context on the panel. You can imagine it's a engaged panel, so if you have questions, do start preparing them now. Would love to take them on. One of the themes that I'd love to introduce to the audience from some of us who've been veterans of the impact investing space in India over the last decade and a half is how non-dilutive financing has become the new frontier or the new innovation for impact investing and for climate investing especially. Now, everyone who's represented on this panel have done well in terms of disbursements and the metrics that they measure themselves against. Black Soil spoke about the level of write-downs or losses they had, and so has Nilesh. The flip side of that is non-dilutive financing is somewhat capped in terms of its financial return. It's a bit of a controversial statement to make. There are releases to the caps in terms of equity-like positions that many of the fixed income providers also have on top. But in general, you get solid to very solid financial returns, but not spectacular financial returns. The spectacular is saved for the metrics that you get that matter for this room, that matter for this conference, and they matter for our planet, which are climate metrics. And those are metrics most easily expressed as carbon dioxide equivalent, that is abated or it's mitigated, it's displaced, etc. in some form. And non-dilutive financing comes in, if you think about it for a moment, it comes in at the point where a successful cut and paste unit economic profit model has been established. And at that point, the promoter or promoters, she or he, feel that they can now take on non-dilutive financing as a way to add value to their company and to their individual stakes, which are important. It's their life's work and their life's journey. The climate metrics that the investment or the intervention of non-dilutive financing bring about are worth sharing with this room. I'll share 2 examples, one of which is in the room, and I believe Jinesh and Omnivore will be speaking in the plenary after this one. I'll give the example of D-Light, which is an off-grid solar lighting company, well known around the world. It started out with an equity-based model. Today, more than 70% of its capital stack of $500 million comes from performing credit of various sorts, securitization of receivables, loans, venture debt, etc. The climate metrics that D-Light has measured through the expansion of its business model, displacing kerosene lamps, is more than 41 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And for those for whom this number doesn't carry context, that is more carbon dioxide equivalent that is abated by D-Light solar lanterns than the whole country of Kenya or Sri Lanka or Tanzania emit annually. The entire country emits less than what D-Light solar lanterns have abated by displacing kerosene lanterns that are polluting and noxious, and they burn off something called carbon black, which is especially noxious. Another example is Dehat, which Trifecta recently led a large round of investment into. And in Dehat's case, Jinesh will lay out the climate metrics, which are, from their perspective, at 39 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So what non-dilutive financing tools and instruments are doing is enabling climate mitigation and the achievement of climate goals at a planet scale from India, because of the sheer size of our country, the size of our problems, and the size of our opportunity. So just wanted to place that as context for the panel and for the audience. I'll turn back to the panel now for specific questions, and I'll go in reverse order this time, starting with Nilesh. And I'll request him to perhaps talk through the example of electric vehicles as an example of a subsector that Trifecta is invested in, and what is it about the venture debt instrument that allows Trifecta to make multiple bets, if you want to call it that, in the electric vehicle space, and how that cumulatively serves the climate goals that we are trying to achieve as a community, as a financing group, and as a society.
Sure. No, clearly, we see renewable energy, EVs as a form of mobility whose time has come. And while the numbers may seem very small today, it's only expected to grow. Of course, there are other technologies like hydrogen, etc., which are being tested, but we actually believe they are some time away, at least for a country like India. And so we have been studying this sector very, very closely over the last 5 years and have made several investments. And luckily for us, they've all gone well so far, and all these companies are flourishing and they're doing extremely good work. From Battery Smart, which is into smart charging infrastructure, to Euler, which is 3-wheeler, 4-wheeler commercial vehicles, to Turno, which is doing EV financing. We are in the process of evaluating, a large trucking company which is going to use EV trucks on specific sectors, and we're trying to study the operational metrics there that will make this viable, because as you know, the EV trucks are pretty expensive, and logistics tends to be something that everybody treats as a cost center. We are in the process of financing an EV bus company for long-haul bus routes. So there's a lot of work that is happening in parts, across the value chain, across different segments of transportation, mobility, logistics, and we are interested in all of them. We've also invested in a battery manufacturing company. There aren't too many of them in India, and we think there's a massive opportunity to build a company of scale in battery manufacturing, as an example. So we are interested in every segment of EV, and I think we would have made investments over 500-600 crores in the space already, and we'll continue to evaluate any interesting opportunities that come our way.
Fantastic. Suhasini, if I may turn to you next. Responsibility is a Swiss-based global investor. We spoke about the return profile that you have on these financial instruments, but then how their climate impact is outsized compared to the return profile even. Could you give us a sense, as you look across your global portfolio, the role that your Indian portfolio plays in contributing to these overall climate metrics, and what is it that you see as your sweet spot to work on in India and globally? Are there things that we're doing in India that can port globally? Are there things that are happening globally that we can perhaps look to adapt and adopt into India?
No, thanks, Jasjeet. I think one thing to maybe, when we look at a deal and when investors look at our funds, they will look at risk return. So that's number one. And despite whatever climate metrics we might give them, they will not compromise on the return. So I think that is one thing that, I wanted to clarify for the audience as well. So it's almost like both need to go hand in hand, but please ensure that financial returns for a debt lender who take different types of risks other than an equity lender, of course, need to be provided. The additional layer is that I think like all of us have said, most sectors are touching climate one way or the other. The quantification of it has been missing. Maybe the entrepreneur is looking at this as a business model, which is what we want everyone to do. The quantification of what your climate footprint is, et cetera, which is the additional reporting that we as lenders and other investors in this space ask for, is the additionality, if I may use that word, it's often overused, that is provided. So that, I think just to put it out there, we've all just become smarter at quantifying what is the footprint and what is the saving, and we can provide those numbers out. In terms of business models, I think India across the space, and we all mentioned these various spaces, is at the forefront at adoption, and companies who are at scale as well. And therefore, we've actually launched an Asia Climate Fund, which is India heavy as well, which is one of the few regional funds that we have. Otherwise, we have global funds. So we're seeing India at the forefront on many of these verticals. At this stage, can't think of what we've seen in other regions which we can play here. But yes, electrification across the industrial and commercial landscape is something that we are quite bullish on in India. Thank you.
That makes sense. Monu, we'd spoken about, you spoke about the gap for SME financing, and obviously anything that is non-dilutive or fixed income, there's some very rigorous underwriting procedures and processes to follow. Your thoughts on how debt underwriting needs to evolve in order to address the opportunity for climate companies and especially SME climate organizations?
So, debt for climate enterprises is very challenging. What's happening in the market is that there is a concentration and polarization for renewable energy projects and EV financing. Let's say these have become mainstream, and so these projects are large projects, or they have very strong sponsors. So you have very large ticket financing that's rolling in, I'm talking debt, which is rolling in $100 million plus. Or on the other end, you will have the EV financing for individual driver, 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupee kind of EV financing happening through NBFCs. That's also become mainstream because it's easy to lock down an EV. The collection mechanisms are strong. There's a diversification of risk. But when we come to the SMEs, not the startups. Startups are also getting equity, seed money, grant money to to test out the feasibility of the experimentation and the new technology they're doing. And then when we want to scale this up, when the companies really need debt to leverage it appropriately, that's where they are finding a big challenge, because traditional sources of capital, banks, NBFCs, they look for collaterals, they look for past borrowing histories, they look for future cash DSCRs, securities, and that unfortunately is not always available because we are working with newer companies. And however, the need for this as we had earlier said, is indisputable, and which is where a lot of alternate finance, the private debt market, is evolving, and it needs to evolve the underwriting mechanism to understand these technologies better, to take care of the concerns around. So many times, because it's not understood, the risk is perceived to be higher than it actually is. And structurally, how do you mitigate it? So the need is to look at cash flow predictability, to structure it tightly and see the business potential, and at the same time have the impact credibility assessed appropriately. So let me tell you how we are doing it internally. We have a unique underwriting process for assessing our SMEs. There are these three pillars when we are underwriting. You have risk, return, and impact. And we need to balance this out without compromising any one pillar. So we use impact as a screening methodology, and every investment that we make has to have a minimum impact climate and social threshold. We have our in-house teams, we have defined parameters that they have to go through. After that, when we do the risk underwriting, so we've kind of merged the best practices between debt and equity, because we're working with smaller enterprises and the risks are tougher to understand. So besides the usual in-house commercial diligence, we roll in external due diligences. We bring in extensive market referencing. We have very strong corporate governance on our investment committees with external members, etc. And needless to say, there is stringent portfolio monitoring. Now, we club that with structuring appropriately. So we spoke about aligning the cash flows, which is important. But on the security side, we don't look for collaterals. That defeats the purpose. But we don't have our exposures naked. So we go beyond the cash flow comfort. We will go with business assets. We want to tie in the promoters with their promoter guarantees, their share pledges. And we take residual charges beyond what the banks offer. In fact, in some cases, we're flexible with amounts. We've offered a tweaking of amount to enable freeing up of an existing security, so that rolls into our package. But I think the cornerstone of our underwriting is a post-underwriting investment engagement with the investee companies. So we come in beyond capital. We will engage with them to provide them our network access. We provide them corporate governance strengthening. We help them in strengthening their talent. We help them raise more money. In fact, for every dollar my fund has put in, investee companies have raised 2.7x of external capital, because their processes get streamlined and they become ready to raise more debt. So yeah, lots more I can go on to, but some of this. And then we roll it into how we generate returns from that. We have demonstrated that impact is not just about its narrative mark. There are operational efficiencies, there are cost savings due to water saving, due to fuel saving, and that rolls into actual value creation for the companies. Thank you.
Terrific. Sai, if I could use you really quickly to address the point about blended finance, which of course by its very definition, combining equity with non-diluting finance, you're blending financing. But if you could speak briefly in a minute or less about your view towards blended finance as Caspian/Black-Sword.
Yeah. In fact, it will be a minute lesser, because Mono, Suhasini and Nilesh have all spoken what debt as a basic. In fact, one of the things, if any of the portfolio companies reach out to me and say, Avishkar doesn't ask this, you're the only one asking about it, or Trifecta does a very detailed, they do a touch point, at least have a reason to say that, now I know clearly how their underwriting goes as well. But in addition to what Monu has mentioned, I think blended finance is something that where we've added as a layer to really mitigate the risk, Jasjit, that, we Caspian Black Soil has really mainstreamed by working. We have already done 9 blended finance structures that has been put in place in the food and agri segment, with first loss default guarantees, pari passu guarantees, interest subvention schemes, tied to both the impact outcome as well as the financial discipline that goes through, right? And we also insist on measuring not just at a portfolio company level, but even at our level. So, for example, Black Soil is the first Indian NBFC as a signatory to PCAF, where we measure our financed emissions as well. And currently the only financial institution in India to have disclosed our financed emissions during the year. So blended finance is something that is definitely getting mainstream. We have partners here like Rabo Foundation, who is there amongst us, where we worked extensively in the food and agri segment with early stage companies, right? Which are working with, farmers in Adilabad growing cotton farming, or, in Dahod doing milk chiller sort of thing at a very tier 2, tier 3 sort of thing, are the kind of businesses that we've been able to support as well. But ditto plus blended finance, that's the thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. Girish here tells me that we're essentially out of time on our panel, so our questions will have to wait for the breakout sessions. My hope is that through the function of this panel, it's given you a sense of the different flavors or different types of non-dilutive financing that then helps really amplify, in some cases explode, the climate metrics that are gotten from successful companies operating here in India at scale, and then also have an opportunity to address markets globally. And I encourage each and every one of you who has an interest in this type of financing to reach out to any of my illustrious co-panelists here. And I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the event. And again, congratulations to IIC on putting together yet another marquee event.
Thank you, Jasjeet, Suhasini, Monu, Sai, and Nilesh for this very interesting discussion.